Hey, what is up guys, my name is David and welcome back to the channel and welcome to What I Watched This Month April edition. I did not watch much this month, but I didn't do one of these last month, and the movies I did watch are actually very good, so I might as well discuss them. If you are new to the channel, I talk about all things film related and pop culture related, so if that sounds interesting, consider subscribing. I started off the month with Miss Americana, the Taylor Swift documentary. Shut up, okay? So I may or may not have become obsessed with Taylor Swift this year. Can't confirm or deny, but for some reason she popped into my head at the beginning of the year, so I checked out her latest album, or one of her latest albums, Scene Folklore, and geez can she write. That being said, this doc was kind of a mess. That could be because I was kind of aware of the stuff this documentary was going to cover, so it never had that emotional punch. But still, it was all over the place, and the main point of this documentary was she's woke now, at least openly, which I mean, based, but is that it? I'm probably being a little too facetious. It is a good documentary and well-paced and well-helmed, and I watched it all in one sitting, and it's very captivating. It's interesting to see the private and lonely life of this megastar, but it bounces around way too much for me to give it any higher of a grade, and it comes off a little too, I don't know, self-grandizing at times, so that's why it's gonna have to be at this grade. Next, I watched Promising Young Woman, which was insane. This is a movie about a woman who goes out every night and basically holds up a mirror to these so-called nice guys who take advantage of her when she pretends to be super drunk. The best way I can review this movie is just by talking about the discourse around it, because the response has been mixed, naturally. The main complaint with people who overall enjoyed the film was that the ending was bad, which I don't see at all. It felt realistic, grounded, bittersweet, kind of like the whole movie. And then the other main argument and more talking point is that it's too preachy, which I can understand definitely, but it does feel naturally woven in. It's not as abrupt or cringy when a sitcom just randomly mentions Trump. And because Cassie, the main character's form of revenge, is non-violence, most of her payback is through just very uncomfortable conversations that will have modern day talking points. Another thing I want to bring up is a quote from Carey Mulligan, the main actress of the movie, which kind of blew my mind. Basically, she says, in male revenge stories, there are ninja fights, shootouts, etc. What happens in her movie is pretty tame in comparison. There's never debates about Batman straight up being mentally unstable and his grief making him do these insane things, or especially people idolizing him. There's never a problem with someone going, hell yeah, that was awesome when Batman does something cool. Children literally dress up as Batman for Halloween. He's literally right above me. But half of the country would absolutely label Cassie as a violent feminazi because she's non-violently hurting men who are about to hurt her. I'm not trying to start anything, and I don't like talking about these kind of things on my channel, but it's just a thought. And it's good that this movie is making me think, especially about very real issues. Anyways, let's move on because I've been talking about this one movie for way too long. Sound of Metal is an eye-opening and devastating drama. What I took away from this movie the most was the theme of stillness. And lots of the scenes and shots in this movie, especially the ones that hit the hardest, are just that, characters being still, maybe not actually still, but just having a quiet moment and writing or looking or interacting with fellow human beings. And the way the sound design moves in and out of clear sound, distorted noise, and nothingness makes you feel so attached and connected to the characters in this movie. You feel his excitement, his confusion, his pain, all of that, and that is fantastic. It is so incredibly well helmed. Because I didn't watch much, I'm also going to include some of the shows I watched this month. I checked out this trashy YA drama called Cruel Summer, which is streaming on Hulu. As of the time of recording, I've only seen the first 2 episodes, and like I said, it is trashy, it is poorly written, it is kind of poorly acted, it's okay. And the writing isn't too bad either, but it's not great. But man, is the momentum good. It does this really cool thing where each episode takes place over the course of 3 years, but on the same day. So I'm pretty sure the first episode takes place on June 15th over the course of 3 years. So you see the different things that occur over 3 years on the same day and how different each scenario is. It's about this dorky girl who becomes popular and this popular girl who becomes missing, and how this dorky girl who's now popular is responsible for that. It's, once again, really trashy, very soap opera-like, but the momentum is so strong that I will absolutely be watching every week. Sue me. And then of course we have to talk about Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which wrapped up, and the best way I can describe this show is it's an ambitious mess. I fell behind on this show for a good 2.5 weeks, and I could not care to watch those 2 episodes I missed. It was a genuine struggle for me to watch those 2 episodes, not because they were bad, but it was just, it felt dull. It did. The momentum in this show is nowhere near the momentum of WandaVision or even Cruel Summer. The finale was such a mixed bag for me because on the one hand, it was nice that it was so contained, but on the other hand, it was so contained. 6 hours of content and the big culmination besides, you know, Sam becoming Captain America, which is so cool. But as far as like an action piece, it's just like a building fight with some terrorists. However, the one thing that I did absolutely adore is how they wove the political thriller nature of this show into the show. If you disagree with the way the politics are being stated, or you find logical fallacies or whatever you want to call them, that's fine, that's a different conversation. But I know there are a good handful of people who are just upset that politics are even in this show that surrounds Captain America, a superhero named after a country. You can't be mad about that. I'm sorry, you can't. Shout out to my boy Ian, who brought that to my attention. Great point. Sam's speech at the end was kind of all over the place for me, because on the one hand, it's nice, yay. But on the other hand, as Jeremy Johns said, you know, it's a nice speech, but at what point does reality creep back in? You know? And that's the problem with all the speeches at the end of these kind of shows, so. Overall, ambitious, just kind of a mess. Overall, I would give the show like a B. So yeah, I guess technically I'm disappointed. But I'm numb to things at this point. 2020 broke me. And the final movie in this batch is 8th Grade. This was a rewatch for me, and the first time I watched this movie, I surprisingly didn't love it, which is shocking. Don't get me wrong, I enjoyed it, but didn't love it. And that is because I knew basically everything that was gonna happen. I knew all the moments and how brutally honest this movie was, so it never had that emotional punch. But watching it again, and almost exactly a year later, was such a nice experience. This film is so comforting and heartwarming, but so not just heartbreaking, but like heart demolishing at times. And like all good realistic human stories, at its core is because of its writing. The writing in this movie is fantastic. Bo Burnham as a director and writer is another god, along with Rian Johnson.
I'll have a Big Mac.
Just like movies such as Lady Bird, it's not trying to be this quirky, relatable, Disney Channel-esque coming-of-age movie. But this movie is just showing the struggles of one girl in brutal honesty. Once again, I absolutely love Bo Burnham as a director and as a human. I love that he is representing this internet generation in Hollywood. He literally was making YouTube videos when he was a kid. It's great when artists can accurately represent what a generation is like, because they were that at one point. So there's just so much to love about this movie, and I love it all. We have reached the end of this first batch of movies, and I'll be back in a couple weeks, and to you it will be a couple seconds, so see you then.
2 weeks later.
I'm back. I didn't watch many movies, but I'm back. I watched No Man Land before it won Best Picture because, you know, I'm cool. While this was not my pick for Best Picture, it was definitely well deserved. No Man Land is such a uniquely beautiful film. It's hard to talk about this film without making it sound like either a formula or a spiritual experience. Because truthfully, it is both of those things. Because on the one hand, from an objective angle, you have the fantastic directing, cinematography, acting, and so on. And then from an emotional standpoint, geez, this movie is something. It's depressing, yet hopeful and eye-opening, and once again, spiritual. It will make you feel things. That's my quote for the Blu-ray. No Man Land. It will make you feel things. David Lawler. I'm gonna move on because this is one of those movies that you're just gonna have to experience for yourself, and I wish I could further motivate you, because that's the one thing with this movie. I struggled to get into it for like the first 20 minutes. Once you can get past the 20-minute mark, I think you'll be able to enjoy it. Like if the first 20 minutes don't get you into it, maybe it's not for you. And that's something that is not talked about enough. This movie is not made for everybody. It's not very accessible at all, which is fine. I even had a hard time watching it because it is so slow. But if you can really get into it and watch it on the biggest screen possible, it is an experience that is a combination of a technical marvel and a spiritual experience. So it's something to watch for sure. Next, I checked out Minari, which is such a beautiful and human film. It captures the spirit of the American dream so well and is able to make normal family tension into a compelling and heartwarming narrative. Standout for me was the little boy, who's also named David, and his interactions with his grandmother. Not only are these conversations hilarious, both what the kid says and the grandmother says, but just in these little interactions is able to tackle in a childlike way cultural differences and expectations, which is awesome. That's able to do that in sentences. Just like No Man Land, this is a hard film to hype up in a paragraph, because to put it simply, it's about a guy who buys a farm to try to help his struggling family. If you think that doesn't sound all too compelling, I don't blame you, but all I can say is give it a watch. It is definitely worth it. I definitely did enjoy this movie more than No Man Land, but I do think No Man Land still deserved to win, especially Best Director. Now for a complete change of pace, I finally watched Godzilla vs. Kong, and I say finally because it took me 3 weeks to finish this movie. I watched the first 48 minutes 3 weeks ago and could not come back to it. It is an insanely boring and dull movie. And the funniest part of all, when I did finally finish this a couple nights ago, I did it while working on a paper. I literally had the screen pulled up on one side and a paper on the other side, and that's how I watched Godzilla vs. Kong. How in the world is Godzilla vs. Kong this taxing of a watch? I'll tell you how. They try to make us care about things that is so hard to care about. It's like an assignment. It's like a really boring lesson in school. I would have not watched this movie if it wasn't Godzilla vs. Kong. If it was just a monster movie, would not have watched it. The only reason I watched it is because I wanted to see who would win. And I did like how they handled the winner. I'm not going to spoil anything, but both teams will be happy. That's all I'm going to say. Just from a technical standpoint, if you're being even a little bit critical of this movie, oh my god, it's a mess. But just from a popcorn entertainment standpoint, it's a good movie. It's worth a watch if you want to sit through it. I had a very hard time doing that. And the last movie I watched this month was Star Wars: The Last Jedi for the 52nd time. And there you have it. That is what I watched in April. If you guys made it to the end, please give it a like. And if you enjoyed this video, then you definitely will enjoy this channel. So please consider subscribing. Let me know in the comment section down below what are some of the movies you watched this month, and I will see you in the next video. May the Force be with you.